a war on multiple fronts. In Gaza, Hamas launched a coordinated drone swarm over southern Israel. Though most were shot down, one drone crashed into a shopping mall in Ashkelon, injuring 19 people. In Iraq, Iran-backed Popular Mobilization Forces (PMF) launched missiles at U.S. bases near Erbil. One American contractor was killed, and 3 soldiers were wounded. The United States responded by launching limited airstrikes on PMF installations near the Iraqi-Syrian border. Iran celebrated the move as a victory, claiming, "The American Zionist alliance bleeds from our united resistance." Back in Israel, the public mood hardened. Opinion polls showed 78% support for continued military operations. Despite rising fears of a regional war, media war intensifies. As the war escalated, so did the information warfare. Social media became a second battlefield. Videos of burning buildings and weeping mothers went viral. Disinformation campaigns flooded platforms, showing faked images and deepfakes of leaders. Hackers from both sides defaced official websites. WhatsApp and Telegram groups became lifelines for those seeking shelter, updates, and missing family members. The global diaspora, Jewish and Iranian, alike held rallies in cities from London to Los Angeles. Most called for peace. Some called for revenge. The world watches. World leaders watch nervously. Russia, preoccupied with tensions in Eastern Europe, offered to broker a ceasefire in good faith. Saudi Arabia and UAE strengthened defenses, fearing healthy involvement in the Red Sea. Turkey mobilized troops along its southern border but made no move. Waiting for the regional outcome, the United Nations attempted to establish a 72-hour ceasefire, but missile exchanges continued unabated. Air raid sirens blared every hour. The war had become a grinding, daily reality. This was no longer about deterrence, no longer about diplomacy. The war had taken a life of its own, feeding on grief, rage, history, and fear. Neither side seemed willing to back down, and for every missile fired, another bridge was burned. While the skies over Iran and Israel burned, a quieter but no less dangerous front line unfolded to the north. Lebanon and Syria became the war's most volatile pressure points. Here, proxy war merged with direct conflict, and what began as sporadic rocket fire soon turned into a sustained military campaign. The Hezbollah onslaught. Hezbollah, Iran's most powerful proxy, was well prepared. Its arsenal, over 150,000 rockets, precision-guided missiles, and Iranian-made drones, was buried deep in civilian neighborhoods, mountain bunkers, and beneath mosques and hospitals. When Israel struck Iran, Hezbollah struck Israel. Over 10,000 rockets were launched into northern Israel within a week. Nahariya, Acre, Tiberias, and Kiryat Shmona were hit repeatedly. Syria, a war within a war. In Syria, the chaos was more complex. Iranian Revolutionary Guard units had long operated within Assad-controlled areas. Their bases near Damascus and Homs had become command hubs for drone and missile coordination. On January 11th, Israel launched a deep penetration raid, striking an Iranian convoy carrying advanced missile parts near Aleppo. Explosions killed 27 IRGC personnel. In retaliation, Iranian forces fired rockets toward the Israeli Golan Heights, where IDF artillery returned fire. Assad's government condemned Israel but lacked the strength to act. Meanwhile, Syrian civilians, already devastated by a decade of civil war, once again found themselves under falling bombs. Russia's silence, Turkey's nervousness. Russia, a key player in Syria, maintained a cautious silence. Its anti-aircraft systems did not engage Israeli planes. Moscow, grappling with European sanctions and internal dissent, chose to stay out for now. Turkey, meanwhile, increased air patrols over northern Syria. President Erdogan offered to mediate the conflict, but warned that any threat near our borders will be dealt with severely. Civilian cost and humanitarian disaster. The toll was catastrophic. In southern Lebanon, over 700 civilians were killed within 10 days. Hospitals in Beirut and Tyre were overwhelmed. Tens of thousands fled northward or crossed into Syria ironically, seeking refuge in a country still in ruins. The United Nations declared a Level 3 emergency and called for humanitarian corridors. But aid convoys were regularly blocked or destroyed. Israel accused Hezbollah of hiding arms in Red Crescent vehicles. Hezbollah accused Israel of targeting ambulances. The truth was buried beneath rubble and blood. While Iran's government framed the war as righteous resistance, inside the country, a very different story unfolded. The Iranian people, already burdened by decades of sanctions, inflation, and repression, now face the brutal reality of modern warfare on their own soil. Tehran under attack? Israeli missile strikes hit critical infrastructure in multiple cities. Power plants in Isfahan and Avaz, military bases near Qom, communication centers in Tehran. Though Iran's air defenses intercepted some, others reached their targets. Air raid sirens echoed through Tehran's narrow alleys. Blackouts lasted for hours. Panic buying emptied shelves. Hospitals operated on generators. Fuel lines stretched for blocks. Censorship and propaganda. The Iranian state doubled down on censorship. Independent journalists were arrested. Internet access was throttled nationwide. Social media platforms were restricted, except for state-controlled propaganda pages. On state TV, footage of downed Israeli drones played in loops. Victory is near, announced the banners. But the people knew better. Encrypted messages leaked from government insiders told of massive damage, IRGC losses, and hospital collapse in Shiraz. Protesters once again took to the streets not against Israel, but against their own leaders. Women and youth in the streets. In cities like Tabriz, Mashhad, and Rasht, students held candlelight vigils for the dead. Women removed their hijabs in defiance, chanting slogans from the 2020 to Mahsa Amini protests. Woman, life, freedom. This time, their rage was directed at both war and repression. Police responded with force. Tear gas filled the air. Social media filled with videos of unarmed girls being beaten. Yet the protests grew. They told us we are fighting for our honor, said 19-year-old activist Mary Am via Telegram. But it's not our war, it's theirs. A nation stretched thin. Sanctions had already made daily life in Iran difficult. Now, with ports blockaded, airports shut down, and key oil pipelines damaged, the economy began to spiral. Inflation crossed 70%. Bread and medicine became scarce. Banks closed in several provinces after cyberattacks. Fuel was rationed. Black markets thrived. Despite this, the government poured billions into military operations. Funeral processions for fallen soldiers paraded through the streets with state actors, sobbing for cameras, while real grief simmered beneath. In Israel, the war was no less personal. Though technologically advanced and militarily powerful, Israel was also vulnerable, especially to the sheer volume of rocket fire and the psychological toll of constant threat. Sirens, shelters, and shadows. From Tel Aviv to Eilat, life changed overnight. School children studied in bomb shelters. Emergency drills became routine. Markets operated under military surveillance. Every siren sent people scrambling into underground garages, concrete bunkers, and metro stations. The Iron Dome was effective but not invincible. When one missile slipped through and struck a Haifa residential tower, 14 people died. It was the deadliest single attack in Israel since 1973. The power of community. Yet in the face of fear, Israelis united like never before. Civilians formed aid groups delivering supplies to elderly and displaced families. Arab Israeli youth in Haifa and Lod joined emergency services, bridging divides. Synagogues and mosques opened their doors as shelter zones. A powerful image spread across social media. A rabbi, an imam, and a medic helping evacuate a disabled woman in Ashkelon. It became a symbol of the war's unintended effect, uniting citizens under a shared survival instinct. The political divide. Inside the Knesset, Political leaders put aside their differences to form an emergency unity cabinet. Prime Minister Danon, Opposition Leader Yair Lapid, and Defense Minister Sheri Ben-Hanan jointly addressed the nation. "We are one people. We bleed together. We stand together." Still, not all were in favor of continued escalation. Peace activists held small protests in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Diplomacy, not destruction, read one sign, but support for the war remained high, especially in the wake of the Haifa tower bombing. Military mobilization, hundreds of thousands of reservists were called up. High school seniors volunteered to assist emergency crews. The Israeli Navy positioned itself off the coast of Lebanon, and elite special forces prepared for potential ground incursions into Gaza and southern Lebanon. The Home Front Command distributed gas masks, iodine tablets, and blackout materials. Supermarkets restricted purchases per customer. The wartime economy kicked in, but despite the nation's resolve, exhaustion set in. Families slept in shifts. News anchors broke down on air. Soldiers sent home videos to their loved ones, some their last. The war was not just fought with guns, bombs, and drones. It was fought in hospital corridors, in dimly lit shelters, in silent prayers whispered through trembling lips. Both Iran and Israel, mighty and defiant, were bleeding. Their governments vowed victory, but their people only wanted peace. In the age of artificial intelligence and digital surveillance, wars are no longer confined to the battlefield. In the Iran-Israel war, data became a weapon, and the digital realm turned into a second, silent war zone, one that reached into homes, hospitals, banks, and even children's classrooms. The first digital strike. Within the first 48 hours of physical warfare, both nations unleashed their cyber arsenals. Israel's Unit 8200, renowned for its advanced cyber capabilities, launched a simultaneous series of attacks. Tehran's electricity grid suffered rolling blackouts for 3 days. Air traffic control towers in Mashhad and Shiraz were paralyzed, grounding all flights. Iran's online banking networks went offline, locking millions out of their accounts. On the Iranian side, the IRGC's cyber corps responded with precision. Israeli hospitals' patient monitoring systems were disabled for hours. A water treatment plant in Ashkelon was infiltrated, forcing emergency shutdown. GPS systems across northern Israel were jammed, confusing both civilian and military transportation. These were not just disruptions, they were acts of psychological warfare. A war of code, not bullets. For every missile launched, there were millions of lines of malicious code deployed in parallel. Israeli AI algorithms scanned Iranian power grids for vulnerabilities. Iranian hackers used ransomware to encrypt city administrative data in Beersheba and demanded Bitcoin in exchange for decryption keys. Rumors spread that Iran had successfully planted spyware in the personal devices of Knesset members. Israeli intelligence, in turn, reportedly hacked the Iranian Ministry of Defense's personnel database, leaking high-ranking officer identities online. The lines between civilian and military targets blurred.